Hello, and welcome to the Cosmic Healing Podcast. I have got one of my most favorite guests that I have on here. I think, Tammy, you are the one that I've had the most, outside of Dana that does the monthly reports. I think you've been my most often guest, repeat guest. So, hello, Tammy Lipp. Thank you so much for joining in on this conversation today.
Good morning. Hello. That is such a huge honor to be up there with Dana as your most cycled guest. Thank you. Your podcast, since it's begun, obviously, is my very favorite podcast, of course. And I tell everybody about it, and I love it so much. So thank you for doing this work in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, leading into this conversation, before I press record, I have a lot of emotion moving through my body. I just know that this conversation it's challenging, right? But why? Why are conversations like this so challenging? And what we're talking about today is this book that you suggested to me that I read, and you suggested it probably maybe even last year or at the beginning of this year. And it is called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. And it is a channeled book from this brave author, Claire Heartsong. She literally channeled the energy of Anna, who is the grandmother of Jesus, and was brave enough to write this entire book. And so when you suggested it to me, I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And I wasn't ready for it when you first mentioned it. And then more and more people suggested it, and I was like, okay, fine. And then when I realized it was on Audible, I'm like, sold. Okay, I can do this. And it was a book that as soon as I finished it, I just wanted to press play again and listen to it all over again because it's just so beautiful, it's just, God, it's just as fascinating to me, like how emotional I am with this, like as this truth, like this conversation, I know that when we have emotion, like what I feel right now, I know that is emotion of truth, of my soul crying for truth and being revealed, just like, yes, 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 this is it, this is it, this is it. And I know that it's like the more I read books like this and the more I understand how this life works and what we're really here to do as each individual souls in this lifetime is to connect to Christ consciousness, to connect to that divinity within. And the more that we connect to it, it's like that's the emotion, right? It's like, yes, 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 true, 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 true. And the layers that we have to work through to be able to get to this level of receiving this truth, of being worthy to receive this level of unconditional love in our bodies and in our life. But this is the purpose of our life. And for me personally, knowing that I am a vessel, I know that's where the emotion comes from, like knowing that I am a vessel for this transformation, to be able to bring this level of love to people, is really what feels overwhelming and scary for me because I'm talking about things I've never talked about before. I'm talking about, I'm because I'm learning along the way. Like this is me just learning and comprehending IRL. Like in real life, I'm like, holy shit, like this book, when I finished it on this past full moon that we had. That was just a couple weeks ago. And I just remember I sat outside and the way that I didn't mean to, but like the way I could just was guided to go outside and just, I was in the last hour and a half of my book. And I sat out there and the way the full moon just shined on my face. And as I'm listening to the story of Anna, grandmother of Jesus, describe the crucifixion of her grandson and the brevity that it took for them to follow through with this mission, like it's so overwhelming. So I just bawled. I bawled because I've never felt more close to the mission of Christ consciousness, of the divine feminine, of this awakening that is truly a movement that, I mean, it is a movement. We are here to move this energy through the world and through the earth. And with each step that we take, being the vibration of healing. So how did you find this book and how long ago and how has it impacted you? And just, yeah, let's just jam out on this.
Let's do it. Let's do it. First of all, I love you so much. I think you finished the book around my birthday because you were like, "Oh, I finished the book." And I was like, "Oh my God, you read the book." And I was so excited. And it had been a little while since I dived into the book because since I read it a couple of years ago, I use this book as like my filler, like when I'm at night and I'm trying to like chill. My husband likes to watch TV and comedies, and sometimes I'm just not into it. I put a book in, and this is my go-to, like in between. I alternate between this and the Dolores Cannon material. And that brings me to how I found this book because I was at a healer's huddle, a really good friend of ours locally here, Carolina, I think you know her. She had a space locally and had invited me to this healers huddle, which was like a small group of local healer mystic, just like me, hanging out, supporting each other, chatting. And I actually met a couple of really good friends there. A couple of people that I'm really good friends with today that we do some fun, energy work together. But this woman was there and she was sitting right next to me and she had this gorgeous energy. She was younger than me. I mean, she was just really beautiful and she just had this like angelic energy. And I was just so like drawn and attracted to her energy. And I had shared with her that I was really into the Dolores Cannon material, Jesus and the Essenes, and they walked with Jesus. And I absolutely had such a visceral reaction to the material in those books, like instant images in my head and downloads, like I was there, all of these things that I thought was crazy at the time, honestly. It was long before I knew about my gifts. And she said, "Oh, if you love those books, you would love this book." She said, "Have you read Anna, Grandmother of Jesus?" And I said, "No, I have not. I have not heard of that." And she was like, "Well, if you love these Dolores Cannon books, you would love this book too." And I wish I could remember this young woman's name. I could ask Carolina. But she was just so sweet. And she recommended this book, and I was like, I'm obsessed with the subject. So of course, right away, downloaded the book. And I put it on Audible right away because I didn't even have the patience to go to the store and get the book or wait for it to arrive. And I started listening. And the very beginning of the book, she talks about how she got into the body she as a walk-in soul. And I had heard people talk about walk-in souls before, but I had never heard anybody like almost scientifically describe it. And as she was describing the process of how she walked into the body, while this woman was like a 16-year-old woman, my whole body, I was like I just had such a reaction, like, holy shit sticks. Like, this is so big. This is so, and it was answering so many questions of things that I had already kind of like started bringing in my channeling and my downloading. And I wasn't taking my spiritual work that seriously yet. I was beginning to. It was the early stages of me even knowing I was a healer, even knowing I was, when I was reading Dolores Cannon, I really didn't have as much knowledge. Now, reading this Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, I had a lot more knowledge about who I was. So reading this was like it was light bulbs going off. Um, and so I was like, oh my God, this book, and as I got to the end of it, which I didn't know, like you don't know what you're getting into, as the book started to describe what was happening, I kept rewinding and listening again, like go back, rewinding, listening again, because I was like, what did she just say? Oh my God, what did you? And like I was having all of these things happen inside of me, like and memories and weird down. It was a spiritual experience, and it took me probably a few weeks to get through the whole book, little by little in chunks, and I would fall asleep and then go back and the whole thing as I would listen at night a lot. And when she got to the part talking about where Mariana is on the mountain and she's ascending with her body. And I was like, it's real. Oh my God, this shit that's coming into me that I think is fucking batshit crazy. And I think I'm never going to tell anybody that I'm having these crazy thoughts because they're going to lock me up. It's real. It's right here in this book and it's real. And I knew in that moment and I was so fucking validated and I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, well, who do who do we tell about this? Like,
Right.
how do we begin to say like, oh, I think that like, we have a coach that we know and she always says like, no one's getting out of and I always say, I've never been able to prove her wrong, but with that statement, like we're going to prove her wrong because you do get out alive.
Yeah.
Like there is a track where and that's what humans were meant to become super conscious and to take their body with them when they're ready to move on. And that was the original blueprint, right? And it's like, oh my God, are we beginning to discover this now with our modern world? And are we going to be able to do that now, like we did
Right.
back then? Because
So,
people in the Bible were 900 years old, like,
yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So when you say this book was validating what you were receiving, so what were what were you receiving? The downloads that you were thinking, you're like, this sounds crazy. I'm not going to tell anybody. What were those things?
So it was a very slow evolutionary process for me. Let me just give anyone who doesn't know me and know my backstory a little bit. My journey into becoming a healer started with being a very anxious, very depressed, hypochondriac type of person, very tightly controlled, very hyper independent. And that was who I used to be. And that was really the beginning of the journey because the reason I was so hypochondriac is because I would be aware of every little energetic movement in my body every time anything happened, right? It was like, and even just like energy moving through like Kundalini or whatever, like any type of energy movement in my body. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, like, I didn't have the information, but I was like, oh my God, this is moving. I must have cancer. I must be dying. Like, that would be the track of my thought. It wasn't like, oh my God, I just moved a little bit of old energy out of my spleen. Like, I didn't know, like, that was, these were chakras and this was
Yeah.
like, but you don't know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you think you're crazy. And I would go to the doctor like all the time and I'd be like, test me for this, test me for that, test me for this.
Really?
And the doctor would always be like, you're healthy. You're healthy. You're overweight, but you're healthy. And even like my blood and my work was always like they were always looking at me like, how is she this weight? And she has like this good cholesterol and this, but I was always very, very healthy. God bless, thank God.
Right.
But I always thought I was dying because I had all of this awareness of energy in my body all the time. So it's just kind of who I was, like super tuned into my insides. So over time, my healing journey, like I just wanted to stop thinking I was always dying and thinking that something was always wrong with me. But in the meantime, like I would have friends come to me and like I would be able to like guess what's wrong with them or like kind of know things. So it was there was signs, but I didn't see them. I just, thought that I was this way. So over time with my healing journey, having my son postpartum, like really being at the darkest, darkest night of my soul. And in that dark night of my soul, having of like crazy, weird, like not grounded thoughts, but also very spiritual and like seeing my soul contract and seeing things that were spiritual truth like mixed in. It was very weird. But I took some time to heal, get grounded, get into my body before I picked up the spiritual arm again and started like, okay, what was that? Like what happened to me? Because there was some things that were like, I believe just crazy. But then there were things that were very spiritual. I could feel the love. I could feel the energy in my body. And I'm like, there was something so good mixed in with that experience. I need to extract that. And there was something so depressing happening in my body when I thought about not investigating what that was. And it was like, I didn't care if it cost me my marriage. I didn't care if it cost me my life. Like I needed to
Yeah.
investigate that feeling that I had in those moments that were triggered by something that was ungrounded, but that was a potential inside of me that I was completely unaware of.
Yeah.
completely unaware. So once I began like the long journey of like, oh my God, meditation, and this is who I am, and like slowly getting into that path, and then getting coherent, right, which is what happens when we get our mind into alignment with our spirit. We start to have this coherence in our body and our mind, our whole system. And then downloads started coming in and like channeling, and I would start writing, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm writing all this stuff. And it would be like medical miracles and all of the, and I'm like, medical miracles, like I'm a real estate agent, I'm an airbrush, like who's doing medical miracles? Like who's doing, like that doesn't make any sense to me. But I would just write, and I would just, bring the information in, and I wouldn't share it with anybody because I didn't understand it, and I was a little embarrassed of it, and I didn't know what was happening, and I felt weird. Nobody in my family is like this. Nobody in my immediate surroundings is like this. So over time, as these things would start coming in, and I was searching for healing myself and healing my own, the intrusive thoughts and the mindset that it was just unbalanced and creating, and then all of my teachers started coming in. I met Tracy Litt. She came in, and then she was the first one to be like, oh, your thoughts are options. And I was like, what? Your thoughts are options? That's amazing. Right. And I need that information. And so I got to really heal myself and get myself into a place where I understood what was happening with my thoughts and my feelings and my body. And then I was like, I can move energy. And as I was discovering all these things about myself, these downloads, that as we do this, right, it's almost like prophetic downloads. As we do this, not only are you going to be able to heal the thoughts and how your body is, you're going to be able to heal your weight, you're going to be able to heal illnesses. And this is before I was pranic healing trained and knew that, yes, there is an energetic way to do those things, right? But I was like, oh, you can really heal. And then it was like, and you can extend your body and your life. And I was like, shit. Like that is just crazy. Like, we're meant to die. We're organic beings. We're not meant to be here, for a long time. And we're not meant to be here forever, but we're also not meant to decay and disease and die the way that we do. Like that is also not the truth. So there is this truth to knowing that we are able to heal ourselves and to rejuvenate and regenerate our cells in our body using our breath, using nutrition, using supplements. And I'm also doing that now with my own outside products, right, that I have discovered that have totally changed my spiritual, what's going on in here. It's wild. So when we get into this coherence, our cells rejuvenate, our brain uses different parts. There's all of this scientific stuff that happens, but we're able to renew our body, like save of getting smashed by a bus, right? You get like obliterated, but like if your body starts to have dis-ease, right? The theory is you start to understand what energetically is creating that in the physical, and you heal it energetically, and then it will heal itself physically, because we are an interface of our spiritual complex, and everything starts in the spirit first. So understanding that helps us to heal and rejuvenate using our breath, using our food. And I started to get all of these like downloads, but like I'm not a doctor. I'm just this little person who, is doing her spiritual work. And I'm like, well, who do I tell this to? And how do we even begin to find that breath that I believe is part of the rejuvenation process? And I started reading different books, Maureen St. Germain, and different things on like the Merkaba field and activating your Merkaba field. And I was like, oh, that's probably how we rejuvenate our body, through that Merkaba field. And so I was doing that like quiet research, if you want to call that research, I don't know, rabbit hole, whatever. And then you were like, we met, when you do breath work, and then years go by, whatever. And you're like, oh, I'm doing this holy breath method. And Vaughn is getting the downloads of how to activate the Merkaba field and how to activate that part of our body that can rejuvenate itself, that sets that domino chain into motion, where the energy starts to come in like that, and we rejuvenate our body. And not only do we use it to rejuvenate our body, that's in the book what they talk about when we decide to go to like when we're done with this incarnation and we're done with this life and we're done with our body, we don't just kill ourselves and let it be buried. We do a certain breath, a certain energetic pattern and technique that literally ascends your body into light. You go in with your body. And that is what Jesus did. That is what his mother did. That is what they were doing in the books. That is what we are all meant to do as humans. It is not them that is only capable of doing that. They knew how to do it, but they were trying to imprint the code of how to do it into humanity so that later on, here we are, how many thousands of years later, we can start to do this. And people like yourself, I believe all over the world, special, spiritually aligned people are getting this download of how to do this breathing and to do this energetic work, coming together in pockets and going to be teaching each other what they know. And the result is going to be longevity and extending our lives, not for the purpose of like just extending our lives, but to do our spiritual work, to be that spiritual conduit so that we bring the light in and that we help each other and we find the paradise that we are meant to be living in, because we are not meant to be living in this dying, war-filled, argumentative world. Like that is a product of the imbalance of the energy, the suppression of the divine feminine. But as she rises and as she comes forward, women everywhere, people everywhere are going to be remembering how to do this over I don't know how many generations, and we will literally create heaven on earth. We will literally create a paradise. And those are the types of premonitions I was having. And that's kind of how I know it's like, it's challenging to put it into words because it's like years of like different spiritual awakenings and like levels of recognition and realizing. But as I've come into this position and met people like you and other healers like Carolina, who invited me to that huddle, so I could like all of the pieces come together so that we can do this work in the world and show people the freedom from medical tyranny, from, the aging lie. Women, we don't shrivel up and die. We go through a second blossoming and our intuition comes in so strong and we become so fucking powerful and magical. And that is the truth. For every woman approaching 40 that's freaking out, get excited.
Yeah,
Get excited.
absolutely. Like because I had my spiritual awakening like around the ripe age of 43 and 51. Here I am. I mean, I feel younger than ever. I see pictures of myself from like 5 years ago and I'm like, oh my God, I look so much better now. I really do look so much better now than I did 5 years ago. And I just think it's so fascinating, exactly what you're saying. I think it's also interesting how, in this book, Anna, because she was like 600 years old, I think, right? Something like that. So she literally kept rejuvenating her body, and she worked with she was active in the Essene group, which I also have read, Jesus in the Essenes, which was, or isn't that what it was? Yeah. Oh, okay. What book is that?
No, this is the Essene Gospel of Peace, which I meant to bring it
Yeah,
into our
no, I'm not
conversation.
nothing, but that one looks like a doozy. That one looks
Yeah.
like
Well, I bought it because of the Anna book, but we'll talk ahead. I don't want to
okay.
interrupt.
But I think it's interesting that, she witnessed so much war and like upheaval in her community and in her world, like so much fear and pain and war and death and crucifixion. I mean, not just of her grandson, but like that was just like the normal, for people to be crucified, if they went against,
Taken
what
hostage.
their beliefs, the Romans' beliefs were. Then it was like, oh, well, you're dead, you're gone,
Mhm.
you're out of here. I mean, it's just so fascinating to me how the wars were happening then and were still happening, but Jesus came to teach Christ consciousness, to like be the teacher, and it's like no, and so it's like, and then it's like the religious, whatever's powers it be that manipulated the purpose and the word and the meaning of Jesus's existence, like it's so frustrating to like listen to the story and her perspective and the journey, and to know that on some level it's like we're still stuck in the bullshit, like we are. And it's been, I don't know how many how many years.
To 2000, right?
Which
It's
is
what's
it
the year? What
actually?
year are we? Because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, 2021.
2024, so it's 2024 years after.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really don't even, I mean, 2024 years in the grand scheme of things is not that long. I mean, it's like billions upon billions of
It's
years,
a
right?
blip,
Like,
right?
right. And so, like, this is just like a little blip in time. but it's a very important time right now. It's like the teachings or it, and I just think about it, those signs on the side of the road that is like, Jesus is coming, are you ready? And it's like, it's not a literal person, like it is the consciousness of Christ that is coming, that is here, that is like coming back. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, you're positive.
Did I freeze or did you? I don't know.
Yeah, you froze for just a minute.
Sorry, we have a hurricane happening
Oh
across the
yeah, you
state. So
do. That's right. You are in Florida.
hopefully it's on the other side. So hopefully it's not doing too much damage to anybody. Um, well, I wanted to just say what you were saying. It's Jesus the Christ, right? It's not Jesus Christ. It's Jesus
Yeah.
the Christ. And he was not teaching Christianity, right? He was not teaching that. And what Jesus actually was doing was upsetting the status quo of the control that religion had on the people at that time. Like he would go into the temples and kick over the donation buckets and be like, you don't need to do this. We don't need to be taking money from poor people. Like you don't need to do this to be one with God. You can be one with God anywhere you pray. And he was trying to teach the truth. And that obviously was not welcome in the hierarchy of power, and that's partly why he was not he was a rebel. He was not teaching,
Yes.
and there was many different sects of Judaism, right? There was different sects, and he was from this Essene sect, which was very mystical, which was very spiritual, which lived differently than the other Jewish sects did. So this was like very against what was happening. And so they wanted to neutralize him, but when you listen to what happened in the book, it was not without design by the Essenes. Like this was
Right.
not the way that it's portrayed in the church. I know this was where people get a little upset about, because we're talking about something that we've been taught for thousands of years from an authority that we've been taught to believe, unquestionably. But the truth is that it's thwarted. Let's just say it's thwarted for whatever reason they did. We can't say what the reasons are, but it's thwarted. And the reality is that Jesus was using his vessel, his vehicle, to imprint the ability to have this oneness, to have this ability to hold the body regardless of what happened, right? Because he left his body consciously, but was still attached to it, right? The string, she talks about the string still being attached to his body. And then he comes back into his body, right? And so it's like this, like a literal going out and coming in, but he was in control of it the whole time. Like he had mastery over his body. That was the big show. That was the big thing. Like we have mastery over our bodies. We have it right now. We've had it all along. You've had the power all along, my dear. Click your heels 3 times. You are free. You are free when you know this. And they don't want this information out because then we're not spending the money. We're not chasing the cure. We're not suckling on the teat of whatever they're telling us we need to be okay. We are sovereign because we are like God. We are a hologram of God. And that is what Jesus means by he's being the Son of God. But he said, ye are all gods.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. One thing I really enjoyed hearing about were the initiations that Yeshua went through and really went on these pilgrimages and really like went through deep initiations, for him to be able to connect to his God-like nature of being able to transcend through anything, any challenge, anything, right? And I just think it's so beautiful because through all of our problems, like these are all initiations if we learn how to be with them and not let them kill us or take us down, and so just the way that she would describe his initiations and she would tell his stories the way he would tell his stories after he came back from like when he went to India and all those stories that he shared, and of course Egypt, and he went through a lot of like painful initiations where he really had to find his center. He had to stay connected to his center, which is everything he had been taught his entire life. by people like his grandmother, Anna, that had that mastery, so it takes a master to teach, so to keep recycling this information. So it's like, this is how you do it. Okay, let me learn how to do it. I mean, we're all learning how to do it from masters that were before us, and being open to explore what that looks like without the conditioned belief of everything that has been fed into us our entire life.
And remember, Jesus was conceived in light, right? We could talk
Yeah,
about that. But his
yeah.
mother was conceived in light. So theoretically, or whatever, he was the second generation of light. So he had such a pure, right? He was created from a different way than most of us are. So he had these abilities to be more masterful, I think, because of that, but because he was also human, it was anchoring it into our blueprint, right? So now it is easier for people like you and I when they say Jesus died for your sins, right? We can really get into that, right? But it's he did this. So, and what sin means, I should just say, is to miss the mark. Sin means to
Mhm.
miss the mark. It does not mean, right, what we culturally have been programmed to believe. So he died to help us not miss the mark. What is the mark? The mark is original sin. What is original sin? Original sin is the fact that when we are born with our humanness weighted over our spirituality because that's protective, that's biologically protective. It is our job, right, to overcome that and to remember that we are actually spirits creating this human body. And that even though our mind might be anchored in that humanness, that original sin, that thought that we are not enough, we are not worthy, right? Instead of accepting Jesus blindly and saying, "Oh, that saves you," to realize what Jesus was wanting you to do in the baptism was to know that you are the light, and that humanness, that little devil on your shoulder, is the lie, and that you can overcome that. And that, right, is what he was here to show us, and that is what the crucifixion and all of these things was here to imprint the possibility that we would know we are the light and we have the ability to transcend our humanness with our spirit. It's not easy, all those initiations. Like there's a lot of, like you said, it's not just like, oh, instant savor. You got to go do put the work in, but it's worth it and it's beautiful. And it's why we come here.
So I think it's interesting, also hearing in this book and in another book that I've read about Mary Magdalene, and talking about how Jesus was a sexual man, like he was in intimate relationships. And I mentioned this in a podcast a couple weeks ago, that I was having a conversation with my aunt, and who is, very religious. And I was talking about Mary, and she was like, no, like they did not have sex. Like he was without sin. And I'm just like, so like,
As if
let's,
sex is sin.
I
Oh my God,
know,
it
right? So,
makes babies. It
like,
makes life. And can we just say that for a minute? Like,
yeah, like,
no.
and because we are, and that brings us back to the feminine energy of, the shame that has been associated with being a woman, and the pain and the suppression of the being of us is a sin.
Mm.
Because if we, like you just said, like sex is a sin, um but sex is how we birth babies, is how we birth the soul. I mean, like
And
it
it feels really fucking good. It
no.
feels good. Do you think there is a God up there that goes, I'm going to give you a body and I'm going to make it feel really good when you do this, but then I'm going to tell you, no, that's a bad kid. You don't do that. Are
Yeah,
you fucking crazy right now? Like, that is just insane to
but
me.
it's I mean, my God, like the
Right?
way that, I mean, most women that I work with, and I'm sure you can agree with the same, the amount of shame that we have associated with sex, not only, from like maybe the religious aspects of it, but from the also the trauma of man taking advantage of our sexuality, and taking that from us and not respecting that version of us. I know I've been sexually assaulted, I've been taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Me too.
I feel like,
Me
most,
too.
I mean, it
And
is
so
staggering
much
to me.
shame around that. Well, I think we talked about it on your podcast in another episode where growing up as a child of sexual abuse, I had a lot of mixed messages about pleasure in my body because your body feels good when it's touched in a certain way. And when you're 2 and 3 years old, you don't know this person's not supposed to be touching you in this particular way. And so you grow up feeling very shame around your body because, like, why did it feel good when I was being abused? Right? Like, you grow up with this deep, deep shame, never mind all of the other ways that society sexualizes us and then tells us we're whores and we've asked for it and you shouldn't do that and all of the different ways, and then the abort don't get me started with the abortion rights and all of the ways that women are pushed around in society for this beautiful ability to create life and have pleasure. And hello, it feels good for everybody involved, right? It's not just us who feels the pleasure. And then we're told, like, men and women are told, like, you're only supposed to do this when you want to have a baby. Like, that's BS. And honestly, in the Jewish faith, that is not the way it is. I know enough about working with Jewish people at this point. My husband is Jewish, and we have worked with the beautiful Jewish community for so long that I have been educated that it is a mitzvah when you have sex with your husband. And rabbis were married and they were encouraged to have children. So the fact that Jesus was a rabbi, it's highly likely that he had a wife, and it's highly likely that he had children. It would be strange in the Jewish faith if he did not. So that's number one. It's the Christian faith, it's the distortion of it that tells us otherwise, because it's totally against our energy to even tell us those things and to tell kids not to masturbate and all of that. Like, don't even, I can get on a whole soapbox. The reality is, having sex in the Jewish faith, especially on certain days, it's a mitzvah. Like, I mean, I can't speak about deeply Orthodox, I'm just talking about what I have learned in some of the sects of Judaism that, because I know there are other parts of Judaism where there's a hole in the sheet, men and women are separated and all of that. But there are parts of Judaism where sex is very accepted and very encouraged between a married couple. And it's highly likely that a rabbi had a partner. And it's also would be highly unlikely for an unmarried woman like Mary Magdalene to be walking around with disciples, right, and not be right attached. And the other fun thing is that they were cousins, which they talk about in the book. Like, it was specifically arranged for them to be together. As in the book, they talk about there was a couple of Marys that Jesus was potentially partnered with. Like, they got to choose, like, see whose
Yeah.
energy matched. And Mary Magdalene was the most rebellious and she was the most unruly, but she was the one that had this connection with him, that had this thing, and they were cousins. Anna was her grandmother also, and that was very acceptable in those times. It's actually acceptable in these times. When Matt and I got married, there's the thing on that, like, are you cousins? Because it's legal for cousins to get married. And it's like, people don't talk about this, but it's still on the forms today. Still on
Wow.
the forms
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
At least in Florida, it is.
Right.
As
Yeah.
of 14 years ago.
And that because they were cousins, and so when she talks about that, but then again, it's so interesting because of the way of the light conception, right? And
Hmm.
because I feel like that also plays a different part in the,
Totally.
where it's not like, I don't, because there was so much light conception.
Yeah.
But I think it's, just going back to Anna herself and her story and the way that, especially when she got to be with I can't remember his name, but the father of Mary,
Joaquin.
who was it?
Joaquin.
Oh,
Joaquin.
was that his name?
I
Okay.
think so.
Um, but like when because she had lived like hundreds of years and had never had like her soulmate. And so then he came with this mission. It's like it was all like, oh, like coming
It's a
together for
beautiful
them
love
to
story.
be able to have this baby, that
Yeah.
they knew would be the mother
Messiah.
of
Yeah.
Jesus. So that was interesting, like how it, because we only hear the story of Mary, of like, oh, but it's like, how did that happen? Well, she had to be like trained and understood the way all of that could even happen and
Yeah.
study underneath her own mother that had experienced the same thing with Mary.
But they leave that out.
But nobody even talks about that. It's like all of a sudden
Yeah.
this Mary comes from, oh, and like
Right.
she
We don't,
was this. Miracle.
They don't talk about how she was conceived of the Holy Spirit also. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about, and then it's like, well, there wasn't not even a father. Well, yes, there was. There was just it's a light father. It's like, because it's still the marrying of two people's energy. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual marriage instead of a physical marriage. It's
Yeah.
different. And it's interesting how the church has created this message of a virgin birth and sexual prudency and all of it's just very, very interesting. It has taken the power from a woman and the gift that literally a woman is in this world to bring life in whatever form it is and has stripped it from her, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So with that, let's lead into the divine feminine energy, because I I wrote I earmarked something in one of the chapters here. It was just saying, my grandson began to fully understand the nature and work of the divine mother, whose empowering and loving presence heals the suffering of the world. He learned how to be still and allow her presence to comfort him in those moments of feeling lonely or confused. And like, we just don't talk about the divine mother enough. And
No.
I've talked about my experience of connecting with the Divine Mother, and that, it was in 2022, and I felt her and she said, I am the Divine Mother. Like, I was on my knees in like tears and emotion and overwhelm of that level of love. Like, I'd never felt that before. And I was just like, who is this? And it was just like, I'm the Divine Mother. And ever since then, like, my heart, my love, my being has shifted and changed so much. And I didn't know who the Divine Mother was. I was like, Mary? Like, I really was just like, who is the Divine Mother? And through, over the past couple of years of sinking more and more into who the Divine Mother is, and allowing myself to do the research on my own. And that's why books like this feel like is giving me answers, because I understand that the Divine Mother is the feminine aspect of God, because Anna references Mother God, Father God. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
say God, my Father. I mean, she very clearly through the entire book says Mother, Father, God.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it just is like, it makes me so angry that it is not talked about. Like, that I was 48 years old, and I'm feeling the Divine Mother come at me and like feel me and hold me and love me and want to work with me. And I didn't know who she was. Like, that makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Like, that is sacred rage right there. The anger that I feel, that's not even anger. It transcends beyond anger, and that is sacred rage.
Yeah.
I am angry that we don't know about her, that aspect of God, that holy feminine aspect of God, that,
Part of God that materializes.
yes,
Like it's so big. It's
it's so big, and it just all makes sense, right? Like, hearing her story has just awakened so much within me of like understanding the Divine Mother, and that she is a Divine Mother. She is a channel for the Divine Mother, and she is, and dare I say that I am too. Like, that still feels so uncomfortable. The other day I was hosting a class, and there were 20 women in here, and it was just so gorgeous and so profound. And I can just tell, I mean, the Divine Mother is always with us, but I can tell when it's like, she's here, and it's like, and she is moving through me, and she is pouring into each one of you. And
mm,
there's this sound sometimes that moves through me, and I'm not a singer. I do not have a lovely voice, but it's like this frequency that moves through me that just like, that just like
Yeah.
blesses all of us that are in this space together. But also, like, the only way we can really get, not the only way, but the way when you're with me is to use our breath to get into that place of an alternate consciousness, like another realm of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
where we are, our ego, everything has like dropped to the floor and we are right here. We are divine beings. And that is when the divine mother can reveal herself because we are open to receive her. Because normally we're just like, we're going about our day. But to be able to be vessels for that level of divinity, that level of our Holy Spirit, for us to just be embodied Holy Spirit, like that
Mhm.
is the goal of this life.
Yes, to marry our human and our spirit and to be that super conscious human. She says it in the book, super consciousness is the birthright of humans, is
Yes.
the birthright of humans. And when we marry that spirit and that human, we literally become like able to transcend
Yes.
physical, mental, spirit, any limit, there is no limitations. And then at some point you become naturally done. Like if you ever watch The Good Place, that show, The Good Place, I love that show with oh God, Kristen, whatever her
Oh,
last name.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
Right,
have
and
seen
Ted
that.
Danson. So I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched but at the end of The Good Place is kind of like it's a whole philosophical series. And at the end, the way that they end it is very much like, it's like you just take your body and you just go off and you merge with source, you merge back into, and you have fulfilled your mission, right? You get to take your whole body with you. Like we're not meant to like decay, and to like leave the body. And I think there's more to it that we haven't discovered yet. I think we're just like starting to open this can of worms, and it
Absolutely.
feels so big and scary, especially like people like you and me. It's like, how do we say these things that have been talked about? Like it's heretical, it's all these, all these things. I grew up Catholic, so I grew up in a church and I grew up hearing these things. And I think I've shared this on your podcast before. I remember being 2, 3 years old in church with my grandma, a baby, and having thoughts, this is wrong, this is all wrong. And where did those thoughts come from to a 2-year-old,
Right.
to a 3-year-old, right? Where did that like? And then I remember feeling like the devil because I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking
Right.
this is
Like
church.
you're
Everyone's holy and praying, and it's supposed to be all like, and what the hell's wrong with me that I'm like, something's wrong? Like I must be the devil. Shit. Like that's the kind of stuff that I was thinking, right? But now I'm like, my little girl, like I was a wide open channel in human design. I have an open head and open root and all these like open centers. And I was just getting information like, because it is wrong. It's not what they were teaching. It's not what really happened. It's very distorted. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to try to say it's for a bad reason or a good reason. It just is distorted. And we are waking up to the truth and taking back the power that we have to connect with the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. It's not just about Father God. There is this mother aspect. And then there's also like the Supreme God, which is like without a name. you
yeah.
can't even you can't even say the name of the supreme, like it's not even a being, it's a loving intelligence. It's without understanding. Well, we are in these human bodies completely, but it
Yeah.
is that thing that animates all of us. It is the thing that tells the palm tree seed to be a palm tree. It's the thing that tells the sunflower seed to be a sunflower. It's like how do we grow? It's like that God force is what keeps all of us propelled and moving forward. It is the limitations of our humanness, right? Of our Saturnness, of the human parts of us that holds us into this ride, right? But we are
Yeah.
not limited. I say Saturn buckles us in, but he doesn't hold us down, right? He holds us
Yeah.
in the human experience, but we are able to transcend that. And when we do, and we're more of, as some of our more of it and less of us, like we are really using these vehicles in the highest and best way that we can. And the purpose is to spread love and light and to help each other and to create beauty and to create. Let your imagination run wild. What do you want to see in the world? What do you want to create? What is the wild can do? What is it? What do you want to build? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What spiritual landmark do you want to leave behind? That is what we're here to do, right?
Yeah.
That is what we come to do.
Yeah. I I shared one time in my Instagram stories a book that I had finished, Jesus in the Essenes,
Mhm.
by Dolores Cannon.
My
And
favorite.
I shared it. I was like, I just finished this book. It was awesome. Really enjoyed it. Like, because that really was another great book of just sharing more of Jesus's story and his purpose here in this lifetime. And yeah, so I shared that in my stories, and one of my girlfriends, she responded and she goes, "Be careful with that. She's a heretic. So be careful with what you read." And I was just like, wow, like, wow.
Yeah.
And I responded back respectfully, and I was just like, thank you for your concern. I'm just exploring here, like no judgment, but like she's placing judgment not only on me for reading a book like that, but on Dolores Cannon that is simply just sharing her experiences. I mean, she didn't sign up to be
No,
able to connect with people like that. And I mean,
no.
it takes such brevity. Like this woman, Claire Heartsong, the author of this book. At the end, I was reading, more about her story. And
Mm.
I'm just going to read it because
Yeah.
I have so much respect for people that can do this because it's hard. Like you are breaking against the grain and it is hard. And she wrote, in the fall of 1987, near a waterfall in the Grand Tetons, I experienced a completely life transforming physical encounter with the ascended master, Saint Germain, who she put in quotes, previously Joseph, the father of Yeshua. So
Mhm.
isn't that amazing? Like how it's all connected there too.
Yeah.
Um, Shortly thereafter, I was informed that I had a close connection with Yeshua's grandmother, which she probably was like, never thought about Yeshua's grandmother.
Right. Who does?
And then almost a year later, while I was in deep meditation, Anna appeared to me on the inner planes and informed me that she desired to share her story with me. And so it was that I began to experience Anna telling me telepathically about her life and taking me holographically into her experiences, which I then sporadically recorded. Like, what? Like, and then I started
Imagine
doing,
what kind of vessel that woman is.
right? I
Like
know, but
just
she didn't sign up to be a vessel for like girlfriends just hiking, in the Teton Mountains.
yeah.
Like she wasn't planning on this, and so I started doing a little more research on her because I'm fascinated with, I mean, that's quite a channel that you are there, like
Right. Just a direct line to Jesus and his family,
right.
no big
Yeah.
deal.
And so as I started doing a little more research on her, like she now is a hermit. She lives in the mountains of California. She does not have any social media. She is not out there. Like her and her husband are total hermits and just trying to, and I'm sure she's practicing what she learned from Anna, maybe how to extend her life beyond, this human current reality and comprehension of what we've been told, because now it's like she knows what's available, right?
He
So
saw
it's
it.
like when
Yeah.
you know and you channel and you experience and you literally see it holographically, like I can only imagine how that must transform your life.
I can't even imagine. Just know because the little inklings I had shook me and I was like, wow, and didn't see how I could even talk about it publicly. So somebody like that and then writing a book. And what I find so fascinating and interesting is she has nothing to do with Dolores Cannon. But if you read the books, if you read all the stories, the incidences and everything matches up. And Dolores Cannon wasn't channeling, let me just say.
Right. Yeah.
Dolores Cannon was facilitating hypnotic sessions, which she was originally doing to like help people quit smoking and other things. Like she was not looking for, Jesus
Oh,
stories.
yeah.
But then people from all over the world, from different places and different times, had stories about living with Jesus that matched up, and she put this material together, not like it came to her in one session, like it was a lifetime of her research and marrying stories from different clients. Those stories, what she talks about matches up with what you hear. Nothing is a contradiction in these
Exactly.
channeled materials, because I'm very like skeptical and like looking for the holes and looking
Right.
for like
I
this.
told. I
And
thought
there's
about that a
none.
lot too, like, because I read the Essenes, right? And Jesus and the Essenes, and how Jesus was, and with Dolores Cannon, she literally was, came upon this person that came to her for whatever. And then next thing you know, Dolores Cannon's becoming a fact checker to see if these timelines
Yeah.
align, and it's just like, and then the more she's seeing that is all put together, it's like, oh my, like Qumran, right? Is that what it's called? Qumran,
Come
which
on.
where their Essene community was. And then to hear Anna talking about that
Right.
same timeline as well. Yeah. And knowing that they have nothing in common, yet the timelines, the scenarios,
The
everything,
descriptions of the land, the
yeah, lines up
places, what
completely. Like, I love that
happened.
you brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like if you anyone has listened to I Am Raw, that's also channeled material. And even though it's a little harder to decipher because it's from the 80s and it was delivered in a little bit more of a like less of a conversational tone, let's just say. The things from that channel material lines up with each of these other so it's like you tell me that people across the globe are channeling bullshit, the same bullshit. Like it's not. Maybe what's bullshit is what's been, handwritten in the books that have been written by men that have been shoved in our face. And it's only pieces of the story. It's only pieces of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I just 10 out of 10 recommend this book. And I'm so grateful to you for bringing it to my attention. And I've already gifted it to many women. And, they might not read it right away, but I know that
Right.
when the timing is right and when they are ready to receive this level of truth,
Mhm.
then they will explore it. Um, but it really is just, it's time. Like, we are in such an incredible time right here, right now. Like, this just isn't a coincidence that all of this is happening now. Like, yes, these truths and everything has been here all along, but the awakening
Mhm.
to these truths is all part of the age of Aquarius, is a part of heaven on earth, is a part of transcending from the 3D to the 5D and beyond. And it's, at the end of the day, it's awakening to our truth. That's all, like, that is all I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to awaken to my own truth and understand and share the teachings that I am learning along the way, and be like, oh my gosh, this actually feels really right in my soul. This feels like truth. Um, and then share that. And then it's up to you if you want to
Yeah.
join
You
the
want to
party or
ride or
not,
not? You don't
like,
have to ride the same bus. You can ride a totally different bus. It's
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Everyone gets to choose. There's no wrong or right. This is a journey, right? And it's a journey for everyone to come to this information and decide if this is a lifetime where they're gonna explore it or not. And there's no judgment either way because there's no time limits. Like we are infinite beings with infinite time, and whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime or never or whatever, it's beautiful. Your journey is beautiful.
Yeah.
You and I and people like us are drawn to this because we feel innately the truth. And I just want to say, like, when things happen energetically, right? Even cosmologic, like even astrology, right? When we have an eclipse or we have a planetary aspect, it's not like the eclipse hits and boom, the energy is here. It takes time for this what happens in that realm to materialize into the physical. So it's like it might happen, but maybe it's a couple weeks later that by the time the energy comes. So
Right.
what Jesus did to over 2000 years ago, right? That imprinting that ability to raise the Christos energy through us and become a unified being, he imprinted that in our collective consciousness. It has taken years to come down, right? It has taken eons to come down energetically. And it has also taken a really long time for us to bring the information out in a from the mystery schools because the mystery schools Jesus attended and the mystery schools that Anna was part of, it was very secretive. You did not talk about those things in public. And if you did and you shared the information, you were killed. So, mystics did not go around shouting spiritual truth at everybody. It was very, very protected and guarded because they knew that humanity was not ready yet for this information. We have transcended that time where mystics have to be secretive. And that's why so many of us have this witch wound where it's like we are so afraid to say and do the things because for so many lifetimes we were not allowed to say and do the things. But now we are allowed. And in fact, it is time, ladies, to get out there, grab the microphone and say what you know and tell your downloads and share what you're experiencing and embody the things you want to do. Like have your will action. Like when you're breathing and doing the breath work, you might be using the air but you're using that will to overcome your consciousness. And you're able to use that will to go out into the world and do charity work and philanthropy and give a homeless person $1 and help a little old lady across the street and do all of that. And when you do that, you are honoring Jesus, the Essenes, all of what they tried to imprint into our consciousness thousands and thousands of years ago, right? They say Jesus is coming back. He's back. We just got to
Yeah,
let him in. We just
right,
got to let him in.
exactly. I love the way that you pointed to that about the mystery schools being in secret, being in, I mean, because in this book, they reference that, like all the secret handshakes, all the sign,
Mhm.
like everything was very underground
Yeah.
because it was not safe because they would get killed if they were speaking against the religion that was there. So, wow, that like the way you just said that really spoke to me, like it's like, yeah, right? Because here I am, here we are, and I feel because when we first started, you like, are you nervous? I'm like, I am so nervous. And that's why, because it has not been safe. It is scary to speak to this, like to
So
come
many past
out of.
lives of trying to be quiet about it.
Yeah, yeah, because you're so right. It was in secret. Everything was in secret. And now we're trying to not make it a secret anymore. It's like public knowledge, like PSA. I mean, like, hello.
Yeah. Now it's
You
the
know,
opposite. Now it's time to share. It's time to have the masculine energy with the feminine truth. It's very interesting when you think about it, right? It's time to take the feminine truth and put her out there and let her be known. We've reached a point where it's more important that we spread this truth and enough people embody the light. And I think we've already reached that collective tipping point where more people are embodying the light than not, even though the news tells us otherwise. I don't believe that. It's just pockets, right? But for the most part, people are good and people are embodying the light. And when we do that, when we know that, we are able to have these experiences. I kind of forget where I was going. And I know there was a point I wanted to make, but it left me. That happens sometimes. Um, when we are embodying this light and we are doing what we came to do, we are transcending all of the past of wars and persecution and not being able to speak our truth and being as women suppressed and repressed and oppressed and lied to and all of that. We as women are awakening to the truth of what we are, and we are embodying this so that we can also help our masculine our partners, because they are toxically overburdened.
yeah,
Like they are toxically out of balance too. Like the divine feminine is suppressed. And what does that mean for the divine masculine? It means that he is burnt the fuck out and
yeah,
he is overworked. So us coming into balance is him. And then together we create, just like what happens in a marriage when women and man love each other and get together, what happens,
yeah,
right? And it doesn't matter, physical man, whatever, it doesn't matter, but
yeah,
you create life, you create new. And that's what we're here to do, individually, partnership, collectively, all of it.
yeah,
But it starts with us marrying our inner masculine and feminine, which you were doing at your retreat not that long ago. I will
right.
just
Yeah,
remind you,
yeah,
because you are following this divine blueprint of this is how we ascend. This
yeah.
is how we transit. This is how we alchemize our human condition.
Right. And it's so fascinating to me, like, as I'm like looking back at that retreat and everything that it was created from, how I still didn't comprehend exactly what was happening. Like I didn't understand. It's like I did, but I didn't understand the depths of it. But now, like the more I let in that divine Holy Spirit and just let Holy Spirit continue to move through me and be the guide, be the teacher. It's like I'm just along for the ride. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's go. And it's like it all makes sense. Sometimes, like after the fact, it's like,
Hindsight,
oh,
yeah.
okay, that makes perfect sense. I get it now. And so, but now it's more ingrained in my body. Like it's, like I learned that, I understand it now, and now I get to embody even more of that. And so like right now, everything that I'm learning now, it's like, wow, I'm, like this is curious. This is interesting. Let me embody more of that. And so
Yeah.
the more I like clear out, and this is everything that I'm fascinated with about teaching, with the breath and the body is let's clear out the density in our body so that we can let in the divinity.
Yes. Oh my God,
That's it. Like
it's
that's
so
it right
good.
there.
And
That's what.
it's so important. And I think you're gonna be so blown away by what is going to happen in your world and your work as you do more and you
I do
perfect that
too.
and you hone what you're doing and you understand more because you're getting so much every like all the time you're bringing in more and you're bringing in more and I'm watching you do all of these
Yeah.
things and I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking cool. This is so
Yeah,
fucking
I really
this is so
appreciate
fucking
you
cool.
saying that because I keep feeling like this is so beyond your comprehension, Vaughn. Like me coming up with a breath work modality that is the holy breath method, like I wasn't planning on that, right? But it's like I can just see God orchestrating so much through so many people, and especially me being very connected to that divine feminine. And I know
Mhm.
I am a divine feminine channel. Like I know
Yeah.
that I am here to heal the divine feminine, and the more that I can allow myself to embrace that and who I am, and that the holy breath, the Holy Spirit has that it is that feminine aspect, whereas I always thought Holy Spirit was that masculine, and it's like, no, the Holy Spirit is the feminine. That is just like the flow and the spirit, right? Is so feminine. And
Yeah.
so the more that I understand that the holy breath is that feminine essence that is here to awaken
The
within.
It's like the breath is the vehicle for that essence. Think of it like that. Like, because think of where the breath is coming from. It's coming from your sacral, your lower spine, right? Where that little inverted triangle is in the back of our spine. That's where we generate prana in our body. I learned this through the pranic healing world. We generate prana in our body. Every time you breathe in and breathe out, there is a little upside down triangle bone in the bottom of our spine, and there are two bones not connected to it, but above it. And every time we breathe out, there's like an energy created between like these three little parts, and that it creates prana in our body. And when we breathe in, we're moving it up the spine, right? It takes 12 hours for the prana we create to move up the spine like this. And then it comes into your brain and moves down the spine like that. And so it takes another 12 hours. So that's a 24-hour cycle. So you create the prana in your body, in the bottom of your spine and your sacral. And when you do intentional breath work, like what you're doing, you're giving that energy that you're creating a vehicle to move through your body faster than it normally would in that 24-hour cycle. So you're like literally giving a shower to your body of the feminine energy essence that heals you and just nourishes you and does all the things, activates all the crystals in your third eye, the whole thing. Like that's what you're doing. You're giving that breath as a vehicle for that essence to move throughout your body, and you're using your will to create it. It is fucking powerful. Oh my God, it's so fucking powerful.
So amazing. It's
Oh,
so fun. It's so fun to, like this past weekend, I had this is my home studio, and I had the most women in this one room right here. I had 20 women fit in here plus me.
I can't
And
even imagine what that
like
felt like.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, and these women, they're not women that live. I live in the burbs of Atlanta, and they're not women that live, within a 10-mile radius of me. Like women are traveling. Like the average woman travels 45 minutes to come here when I
Wow.
host these classes on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
And so it just is like it's here, it's time. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we are ready. And the
Mm,
more that we just say yes and surrender to that intuition and that soul nudge that is guiding us into a place that is like, I don't know why I'm going here. I don't know what is going to happen. It's like, but I'm trusting, and it's in that trust and surrender and really surrender, of once you're here, you have an option to be like, to surrender into the experience or be like, "Ooh, I don't understand what is happening," but
yeah,
that, I do think that is the beautiful, powerful part of me, is I truly create a space and a portal,
interesting.
but within 5 minutes we're in it. And if you aren't experiencing what the rest of the women are experiencing, then that's just it. That's okay too,
Okay.
because
That's
maybe
what you
next
said.
time you'll surrender a
Yeah.
little bit more, but at least now you know what is available to you.
Yeah, so you witness it is very powerful for you to take it in with your eyes so
Yeah.
that your body and your mind can go, oh, okay, this might be possible for me. Because it's that monkey see, monkey do that way we have. Like with humans, it's like when we see someone doing something, then we know, oh, I could do that too. Like, oh, I could,
Right,
like that's possible for
exactly.
me.
Yeah. Yeah, there was
You
one
want
woman
to,
here that was new. She's been wanting to come to my retreats or classes for years and never has. And she finally came, and she was just in tears, just being like, I never knew this existed. I never knew that women were coming together
what a
and
gift.
were healing through each other and were crying together and holding and loving and celebrating and lifting and screaming together. And just, she's like, I never knew this was available to me. And I was like, yeah, me either, until I witnessed it, and it's like, but now it's available to you. And next time you come back, you get to surrender, because she was in a witnessing. She was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, even though she, felt
Yeah.
emotion and she had an experience, next time she comes, it'll be even more grand, because
Mhm.
she's going to be like, now that I know it exists, I get to be in
To
that
play even
experience. Yeah, I
more.
get to
Yeah.
embody it.
It's a process, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing to highlight for people that come into the space and they're overwhelmed or they don't understand. It's okay to feel that way. We all sometimes feel that way, and it's safe to feel that way. You're not weird, you're not, it's not wrong. Just
Yeah.
follow the nudge and then just allow yourself to witness. If that's all you are able to participate in those moments, that's perfect and right. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And I think that that's why conversations like this are so important, because I'm certainly not acting like I have it all figured out, because I think, like you said earlier, like, I think we're just beginning to like tip the iceberg. It's just like, I think we're just getting started on this. And so for me to, um, and I feel like that is something that I do, is like, as I'm learning, I'm so like, huh, did not know
Hmm.
that existed. And
Yeah.
so the more that we can act like honest, true people, this is having vulnerable, authentic conversations, like, I that's why the emotion evoked in the beginning of the conversation, because it's like, it's just truth. Like, we're just exploring. We do not have it all figured out by any
Yep.
means. And I never want to have it all figured out. My favorite thing to say this year is, the only thing I know is I know nothing at
Yeah.
all. That has been my whole theme this whole year, because this year has been such a deep spiritual awakening for me, on a totally different level than my first spiritual awakening, which was a lot more superficial, of, oh wait, I think there's more, and
Mm,
working through like the layers of my lifetime of pain and trauma, like clearing out, so that I can get to the meat of this right here, right
mhm.
now, of what we are discussing. So
Yeah.
it's like, it comes in layers. And so even if you might not be, totally resonating with this conversation right now, I guarantee, I know it is part of the process, it's part of the evolutionary process, is the more you heal and the more you release the trauma that your body's holding on to, you will access this truth, because it is truth within you. So
Yeah.
even though you might not totally be like, I don't know, you're gonna get there. And then when you do get there, you're gonna be like, oh, that's what Vaughn and Tammy were talking about. That's, now it means so much to me. Now I get it. And so
Yeah.
there's no judgment if you don't understand, if you're not where I'm at. Like it's not like a level, it's not a hierarchy. It's just like, this is what I'm experiencing. And it's available to us all. And whenever you're ready to experience it, come play with us
Yeah.
in this realm.
Yeah, just like Dolores and Claire, they had to write the books so that we could have these conversations, so that we could have these experiences, we could have these awakenings, and all the people that channel and bring forward information. I mean, there's so many beautiful channels in the world, men and women, and they do the work of bringing the information forward. I always say, like, they could try to rewrite the Bible, and they did, in the whatever 14th century, they got together and they decided like what was going to go in and what was going to come out. But you cannot suppress the truth from humans because we are divinely connected. Oneness squashes all of that. So they can burn the libraries and they can do all of that, and that's fine. But we will always find the truth. We will always find the truth.
Because Jesus came to Earth, to this planet, to encode the wisdom,
Yeah.
and that's another thing, like going to Gaia, like I've never been so connected to Mother Earth. Like I always was like appreciative, respectful, like thank you, Mother Earth, but it's like now it's like, ugh, like
She
her
she
energy,
she is the embodiment of that divine mother. Like that is like energy
creator,
creates
nurturer,
the matter, and the physical earth we live on is her divine embodiment. Like it is the divine mother. Like, have you ever watched Moana? Right?
yeah, right, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Like it is her. It is
Yeah.
her. And I do think she's a little pissed in some places.
She's
And
definitely
she's,
pissed. Talk about
she's
sacred rage. She has
yeah,
it. And I
she's
imagine
entitled
it
to
like
it.
she's literally like she is shaking off her trauma. And as
Yeah.
she is shaking it off, like a lot of people
Like
are,
her kundalini is moving around and it's doing its thing, and we are on this ride with her. And if we want to be buckled into her, we have to energetically plug into her.
yeah,
You cannot physically hold on. You have to energetically plug into her and respect her and learn how to work with your own cycles, her cycles. That's the whole work I do in the world. Cycles, working with the cycles, working with the stars, working with understanding our energetic cycles, get in tune with her energetic cycles. Women who live together, they start menstruating together. Why? Because we are meant to cycle together, to resonate with each other. And we must literally get in sync with Mother Earth.
yeah. I totally agree. Yes, that. And there was, I can't remember where in this book, but yeah, I think it was towards the very end when she's talking about Jesus's the crucifixion and the resurrection and the
Mm.
purpose of all of that happened was literally like the codes could be cycled into earth, for
Ascension
each.
codes.
Yeah, because that's where the wisdom is, right? So it's like it's all was like put into earth so that each time as we're humans, because we're humans on earth, like we're not talking about other planets, we're talking about this planet, we're talking about us, and
Yeah.
that's truth, right? So
And now it's possible for us because he did do that, right?
yeah,
He accomplished they accomplished, I should say, because there were, right, his grandmother, his mother, his wife, like
yeah,
there were so many people, his
so
friends,
many,
the cousins,
yeah,
John the Baptist, like so many people involved in that story. It's not just really his story, although he's the big player and he did the big thing.
yeah,
And we're so grateful for
it's
all of that.
beautiful.
But you can't suppress the truth of what
Yeah,
happened because it's energetically imprinted in who we are.
yeah. My love and relationship to Christ has been the biggest plot twist of 2024. It really, really has. I am so grateful that because there are just so many things never made sense to me. It never felt like, oh,
Right.
but now it's like, okay, now I get Jesus. Now
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. And I really love Jesus so much more than I did
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, because they leave out a whole part of his life. Like he's like born and then he comes back and he dies. Like, where was he
Yeah.
for all of those years? What was he doing? Like, they talk nothing about it. Like, he's
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Every single moment of his life should be documented in the Bible. Why is it not?
Yeah. Well,
It's so fascinating.
curiosity, right? And I think those truths will be revealed more and more and more as the
Yeah,
negative agenda is becoming
dying
more
off.
brought to the light.
Yeah, just
You know?
dying off. And I want to mention, I have not read this book yet, but Kylene, who you had on your show not too
Yeah.
long ago, my lovely Kylene, she has found a sequel to the Anna, Grandmother of Jesus,
Yeah.
and I need to get my hot hands on it. I thought I
Well,
had it in my
it's not
Audible,
on
but
Audible, but
no, it's not on
I
Audible.
know I was very sad about that, but I do have the book
Did
and
you read it?
I haven't read it yet. I haven't
Okay.
because I have to sit down and read it, right? And
Yeah,
I'd much
right. It's
rather
not,
be doing
can't
other
listen
stuff
while
while
you're
I'm
doing the
listening.
dishes anymore.
Right. So I do have it and it'll probably be better for me to have it so that I can just read it with like my highlight and
She said there's like a whole lineage in the back or something, like there's a whole family tree in the back. Or so some kind of family. So I have to get myself a hard copy of it too because
yeah.
I don't have
So
it.
Anna, this is Anna, grandmother of Jesus. Next time we'll talk about the Magdalens because that is the part two of her channeled frequencies of
Oh
that
my
book.
God.
So
And I mean, you could go down that rabbit hole. We could do a whole separate podcast like series on the Magdalene. It's like
yeah.
such a huge
Oh yeah, because that is,
topic.
I mean, that's like really woke me up in the beginning of the summer when I read the Magdalene manuscripts and
Mm.
Mary Magdalene Revealed. And like I'm like reading these books and I'm like, yes, 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 yes. This is the divine feminine truth and the mission of my life right here. And it's just like it makes so much sense and I'm so grateful.
Yes, it feels so good to connect with her. She is such a loving but powerful energy. I
Yeah.
just reading about her has been, it's so funny, like how did I come, like when I think about how did I find her, I found her through Tori Amos's music, which is so funny.
Oh
If anyone
yeah.
knows me, they know that Tori Amos is like my religion. I love that woman and I love all of her work. And I'm a puzzle master. Like that's who I am innately. I came into this world. My mom said I would draw on my dolls and stuff, but I had my puzzles and don't fuck with my puzzles. And like that's who I was as a kid. And I remember like with my imaginary friend doing puzzles and all the things. And so Gnosticism, right, Tori writes about it in her music, but Tori's music is a big puzzle. It's all double meaning things that mean three different things: religious, spiritual, feminist, like weaving in, and you can look at it one way one day and get something out of it, and then a year later look at it and get something else. And she talks about in her music Mary Magdalene and the Magdalene and the woman with the alabaster jar. And that was the first book that I read about Mary Magdalene. And when I read that book, I was like, oh my God. Like I started to understand why Tori's music was so like pulling to me in such a spiritual way because I'm like, oh, like why am I like obsessed with this piano player? Like that's so weird, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's so much in her, there's so much religious truth and spiritual truth like woven into her lyrics and her music. And so this is where I started to like go on a puzzle, like, what is she talking about? What does that word mean? What, and I would just start to, and that's how I ended up reading Holy Blood, Holy Grail, or reading parts of it. That's a huge tough book to read. But I got it. I worked through some of it. And then of course all the Dan Brown books and all of that. But like there's so much out there. And when you start reading it, your body just lights up
Yeah.
with all of the truth.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, to that note, let your body be lit up in truth and question it, explore it, allow yourself to not feel scared or, for those of us that do come from a religious background, it is scary to explore this, right? Because that's not what we've been taught. And if we explore anything other than what we've been taught, we will be judged and condemned to hell to burn for eternity. So that's scary, right? So, but it's not true.
Just
It's not
remember,
true.
Jesus didn't believe in hell because Jews don't believe in hell.
Yeah.
So just remember that Jesus didn't worry about that, and you shouldn't either.
Yeah. So it's so beautiful. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for this conversation and for
Girl, I will
jamming.
have this conversation with you any
I
day, any
know, I
place,
know, I
anytime. And
know.
I just want to
So
say, like, I don't know if you're thinking about getting a space, but like, I feel you having your own bigger space. at some point, doing healings. It's like when you were talking about that, I was like, oh, I see. I don't know if that's on your radar, but I feel it for you. So
I got a lot of things on my radar, so we'll
get ready.
I'm just surrendering into the divine unknown. So we shall see.
Ugh,
But
I
thank
love it.
you. I received that and as confirmation. So thank you.
I
All
love that.
right. Well, thank you again, Tammy. And I'll be sure to link your socials and how to work with you and all that stuff because you are you have a beautiful sacred circle, monthly gathering. So I'll just make sure that I include access to all of that because you truly are a wise woman and a teacher. So thank you for being in this conversation with us. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.